Yeah, so we've been speaking about the difference between Chokhmah and Bina, or what is usually translated as wisdom and intelligence. Wisdom is that first initial spark that comes from God, and therefore we need to be completely humble or egoless to be able to receive it. And Bina is the development of that spark. So it's really activating two separate wheels. Chokhmah activates the wheel of complete nullification, self-nullification, bitul as we called it. And in order to be able to be that recipient to God's light, and Bina activates the other side of ourselves where our ego is a little bit more involved, or at least our mind, our level of understanding is a little bit more involved so that we can develop that initial spark. Um, that was the difference between the two. We spoke about a few more things, particularly regarding the difference between the two, but I suggest we continue at the bottom of page 105, as you just said, Margot. Does anyone want to read? Chokhmah is the initial flash of cognition. Anyone?
I'll read, Rabbi.
Oh, thank you, Jordan. Go for it.
Chokmah is the initial flash of cognition, the first grasp at awareness, neither comprehended nor intellectualized, the lightning bolt that illuminates the darkness, delivering its once only impression. A protracted stage follows in which a person needs to understand what he saw. He disassembles the picture, attempting to integrate it with earlier ones. This is the stage of Bina, in which our intellect comprehends the subject. Chokmah, though, as it enters Bina, flashes and pulsates again and again like an electric spark that energizes a motor time after time.
Right. It's almost like that eureka moment, right? When Archimedes was in the bath and he jumps out and eureka. It's almost that flash that comes from nowhere that we sometimes don't even expect it. And it just permeates our mind from a divine source. There's no other way to explain it. A lot of startups begin like that. A lot of great ideas begin like that. But it's that initial source. Bina, again, as we said, is a development. Maybe read just that one more example here, Jordan. Chabad literature.
Chabad literature gives another example. Someone is stymied while trying to solve a problem. He sits and examines the issues when suddenly lightning flashes. I found it. If we were to ask him at that moment, "What did you find?" he could not reply. For Chokmah, the source and the motive force of intellect, is by itself nothing. The dimensions of understanding, their length and breadth, the possibility of exploration and rebuilding, of in depth study and the discovery of the roots and possible results of things, all these are the intellectual understanding and comprehension that come only after Chokmah's illumination.
Right. So and that's Bina. What you just described now is Bina. That comes only after I can sit with myself and again activate that second wheel that we were speaking about. I want to bring another example, but I think this is a powerful one, and it comes straight from the book of Psalms in Tehillim. I don't know if we've mentioned this before, but it's interesting because some Psalms begin with Mizmor le David, like Psalm 23, which is maybe the most famous of Psalms. Mizmor le David, Hashem roi lo ichsa, which means a song for David, a song by David. God is my shepherd, I shall not lack, right? But then you have other Psalms that flip those two opening words around. And instead of saying Mizmor le David, a song for David, it says le David Mizmor, which is for David is a song. Um, like Psalm David 47, I believe. David is more La Hashem Haaretz Umloah, that God fills the world. What is the difference between the two? And I think the difference is very much connected yet to Chokhmah and Bina. When David was receiving this flash of Chokhmah and a song was coming through him, it says Mizmor le David, a song came to David. But when David experienced what's called a writer's block, when he wanted to write a psalm, but it didn't come as that flesh that is explained here, then it's Le David, Mizmor, to David, a song. And both are crucial. Both Chokhmah and Bina need to be actualized in order for us to attain any type of veritable idea, an idea that can last at least some time. But sometimes the chokhmah just comes from nowhere, and that's specifically when we are in a state of selflessness. Sometimes we have to activate the second wheel, bina, and then as we are doing so, the chokhmah comes. So it's not necessarily that chokhmah is always before bina. Sometimes bina is what activates the chokhmah, if you see what I'm saying. But they come hand in hand, yet they activate themselves very differently. Um, we said that, it's interesting, we're speaking now about bina. We spoke a lot about chokhmah in this chapter, and we said that chokhmah is the combination of two Hebrew words, koach ma, the strength of what? Being in that constant state of what? Of exploration, of curiosity, of always being open, of selflessness. Bina, it's interesting because Bina has two meanings. Bina in Hebrew, first and foremost, comes from the word bana, which means to build. And it is indeed the building of Chokhmah. That's what Bina is. Bina means to build. Bina also is the word for son, ben, the son of, right? Or child. And that is because Bina is a child of Chokhmah. It is the development afterwards. The Chokhmah came from, some, let's say, a drop. But then you have the pregnancy, and then you have the raising of the child. All that is Bina. So in the word Bina itself, we also see the meaning of it. Just like in the word Chokhmah, we see the meaning of it. So the word Bina also is building and raising a child. Think of it that way. What child? What building? Not something that is yours. Something that came to you. Something that is not yours. Came to you from above. That's the Chokhmah. So in the words themselves, we see what they mean also. I welcome ideas, questions, disagreements. So feel free to speak up. Otherwise, we can continue. I do want to connect this. This is just so powerful because we often study pieces of the Tanya that are very relevant to our times. And it just happens to be that way. Again, that's the chokhmah that comes to us during this lesson. But in many, many ways, this is exactly the stage that we're in. We had chokhmah during Passover, and then in the middle of Passover, we are asked to transition to the stage of Bina. Why? Passover is really God's revelation. God did most of the job to take us out of Egypt. He brought about the 10 plagues. He split the sea for us. He did a lot for us. But as we approach Mount Sinai, as we approach Shavuot, which celebrates the giving of the Torah Mount Sinai, then we have to work on ourselves. Then we have to activate Bina. Pesach is really God's domain, and it's God connecting with us. That's why, by the way, on Pesach we eat matzah. We spoke about this a little bit. Matzah is a flat bread because the only way to access the miracles of God, the chokhmah of God, is through humility. The flatness of the bread, of the matzah, represents just that. But now we have Sfirat HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. The counting of the Omer is not just the counting of days, which signifies something important too, and that is to value time. But it signifies also mystically something much deeper, and that is the self-refinement that we have to engage in order to be able to receive the Torah on Shavuot. That's why, and by the way, I would warmly encourage that booklet of Rabbi Simon Jacobson about the counting of the Omer. I don't know if some of you have it. I forgot what it's called. But it gives you exercises every day in order to engage in the self-refinement that we are supposed to engage in every day. So, for example, today is the 10th day of the Omer. 10th day of the Omer is Tiferet Shebakvura. What the counting of the Omer does is that it takes the 7 Sefirot, the 7 emotional attributes that, again, are there in order for us to work on ourselves, and it multiplies them by 7 because each one is intertwined with the other. So we are right now in Tiferet Shebakvura, which means beauty within discipline. And the exercise of the day, I would say, I don't know what Rabbi Jacobson writes, but the exercise of the day for today, and again, every day is its own exercise. But the exercise of today to activate this Bina is how can we find beauty in discipline? Not in the yeses that we say, but in the no's that we say, in the no's that we say towards others, but most importantly towards ourselves. How can we find the beauty in the self-control that we exercise and the strain that we have to exercise sometimes? That's Tiferet Shabakvura. So every day is its own exercise. But all of this period, Passover was Chokhmah, all of this period until the giving of the Torah Mount Sinai is Bina, building that connection with God. God said, okay, I want to connect with you. Now it's for us to connect with Him. How so? By refining ourselves. Bina, raising our inner child, so to speak, the Ben, within the Bina, so that it is ready for the giving of the Torah. Just one last note. Shavuot is the culmination of that effort. There's Chokhmah of Passover, Bina of the counting of the Omer. Shavuot is Da'at. We haven't spoken about Da'at, but that's the third of the intellectual attributes, the third and final one. Da'at means knowledge, but Da'at also means connection, deepest connection that can exist. That's why when the Torah speaks about Adam having intimate relations with his wife, Eve, Chava, and that eventually gave birth to children, the first children of history, it says, Ve'adam yada et Chava ishto, that Adam knew Eve, referring to that deepest level of connection, to know and to be known. Now, how is that connected to Shavuot? That again culminates the Chokhmah and the Bina that began on Passover and continued with the counting of the Omer, because that's exactly the point of the Torah, to connect heaven and earth, to take that which was completely separated and bring it here to this world so that it can elevate the world. That's the goal of the Torah, to be able to take the cow that is spoken about in the Torah, or the apple that is spoken about in the Torah, or even just the straps of our tefillin that are talked about in the Torah, and bring holiness to this world, and by doing so, elevating it. So it's really merging heaven and earth together, and that's that ultimate connection on Shavuot that happened thanks to Shavuot, thanks to the giving of the Torah, which is again Da'at. So there are three clear stages, both in the micro and in the macro, in which we have to not allow the chokhmah, that revelation of God, to just dissipate, but rather to grab it, work on it internally, and eventually that will create the connection between heaven and earth, our own heaven and earth in the world altogether. Anyway, that's why it's so beautiful that, yeah, we are speaking about Chokhmah Bina, and we are supposed to live it during the counting of the Omer too.
Rabbi,
Yes, please, Jordan.
the booklet you were referring to
Yeah.
is exceptional, and I would highly recommend it to everyone as well. It's called A Spiritual Guide to the Counting of the Omer,
Hmm.
uh, 49 Steps to Personal Refinement According to the Jewish Tradition.
Oh, thank you so much.
Rabbi Simon Jacobson.
There you go.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a small booklet. It's not a whole book. You don't have to be worried now that you have to read 400 pages. It's really small and it's practical exercises, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to give an example, it just shows how there's just a couple little paragraphs for each day of the counting of the Omer.
Hmm.
And as you were saying, there's an exercise for the day,
Right.
and it put into action those principles that reflect that specific count on that
Beautiful. So
particular.
what's today's? If you have it in front of you, what's
Yeah,
today?
today would be 11.
Oh,
Um,
tonight is it? Yeah, today is 11. No, tonight is,
No, tonight is 11.
Tonight
yeah.
is 11.
So
So
what's for the
yeah,
10th?
ready for tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
Today, 10, exercise for the day. Be compassionate to someone you have reproached.
Okay. Very good. So there you go. You have the compassion, the beauty, and the gvura, and the reproach.
Good
You can also
exercise for every day.
Right.
you can also sign up on his website, Meaningful Life Center,
Oh, there you
and
go.
they will send you this every day in an email, which is a really nice.
Oh, very good. Even better. Excellent.
Yeah.
So that's the Bina we should engage in. Excellent. God has done his part. You know, the Kabbalist, if we want to go deeper into this, but they quote a verse from the Song of Songs that is divided into three parts, and each of those parts represent to these three steps, Chokhmah, Bina, and Dat, and at the same time, Passover, counting of the Omer and Shavuot. That verse is when, it's the Song of Songs. It comes from the Song of Songs. The Song of Songs is about this meeting between two lovers. And eventually they separate and they are searching for one another. Particularly the girl is searching for the man. And they never meet until much later. But the Song of Songs is read on Passover. It's almost like God is searching for us and we're searching for him. And there's that tension that is so beautifully expressed in the Song of Songs. But one of the verses is Moshcheni acharecha narutza, in which we tell God, pull us after you, or pull us towards you, and we will run. And then Hevi'ani amelech hadarav, and we will enter the king's chamber. And these are the three steps. Pull us. It's chokhmah. First, God. God, we tell you, pull. You bring us. Pull us towards you. And then we will run. Venarutza. Once you pull us, you do the first thing. Show us that you want us. And then we'll run after you. And that's the counting of the Omer. That's the Bina. And once those connections are made, both the pull and the run, then Eviani Amelech Hadarav, then the king brings us into his chambers. Then we have that intimate connection, that da'at, or that full bridge between the person we were and the person we are becoming, or the heaven and the earth. And again, that's beautifully expressed in that Song of Songs, again, according to Kabbalists. But it's those three stages, and I believe that these three stages are at the foundation, really, of every creation, of every worthy creation, at least in this world. Without them, no creation is really a creation, or no product, no impact is really an impact. Okay, let's continue, unless anyone else wants to say anything else, please. Right, middle of page 106. Does anyone want to read? That's Jordan. You want to continue? Margot, or anyone?
Jordan, go ahead.
Please, go
Okay.
for it. Yeah.
Note the etymological composition of the word chokmah koach ma, the potentiality of what is. Ma is the term for nothingness, the non-existent. Accordingly, it is an expression for humility and self-negation. Moses and Aaron said, Ma, what? What are we? We are nothing. We are not causal factors of influential, and therefore your murmurings are not against us, but against God. Ma is also an expression of questioning. Kabbalah raises two questions, Ma, what? The query of chokmah, and me, who? The question of bina. The two are interrelated, as are chokmah and bina. Ma is the fundamental question confronting the void. Who is the question that comes only after there is Ma, when there is existence. In the words of the Zohar, when there is a someone about whom it can be asked, who?
Right. So the Ma comes in first. What? Like, whoa, something just entered my mind. And then me, where did it come from? Who gave it to me? Those are the two stages. It's interesting. I just want to dig a little deeper here, but it's interesting that Moses and Aaron did say Ma, v'nachnu ma kitalinu alav. In what context? They were in that state of, okay, I'm nothing. God, it's all you. I'm completely open to you. What was the context? The context of the greatest rebellion launched against Moses and Aaron. So it's a rebellion by his own cousin, Moses' own cousin, Korach, and 250 men, along with Datan and Aviram. We read that in the portion of Korach in the book of Numbers, where they launched a rebellion trying to topple the leaders of the Jewish people back then, Moses and Aaron. And at that stage, Moses and Aaron say, V'nachnu ma, we are what? It's fascinating. It just shows the depth of their humility. Because when we are confronted, very often, our ego kicks in. Oh gosh, we become, very defensive. And that's just a human reaction. And here, when Moses and Aaron, who was so humble, who was such in such state of selflessness, in fact, Moses is called the most humble man ever to walk the planet by God himself. Instead of having the ego kick in during the rebellion, oh, who do you think they are? My cousin is launching this rebellion. How dare he? I'm much more worthy than him. They go back to the state of ma. Fine, if that's what if that's what it's about, then that's what it's about. All right, if God wants to give us that challenge, that's fine. We will not allow the ego to kick in. We'll remain in that state of ma, regardless of how the human being is built, even in times of rebellion, even when we think that ego must kick in. It's just so powerful. Um, it reminds me of this cute story about the Lubavitcher Rebbe that I don't know if I've shared this before, but you can see it on video where this elderly man comes to the Rebbe to receive a blessing on a Sunday, as many thousands would do each and every Sunday when the Rebbe would give out $1 for charity, and then people will have the opportunity to speak with him. And the man comes to the Rebbe, and apparently something happened that maybe the Rebbe gave him a blessing that didn't fully come true, or I don't know exactly know what the context is, but he comes to the Rebbe pointing his finger like this and saying, Rebbe, I'm very disappointed at you. Now, again, in a state like that, you're not in a ma. At least I wouldn't be in a ma. It's like, whoa, you become like very defensive, right? Why is he disappointed? What did I do already? But the Rebbe was in a state of ma, just like Moses and Aaron, and the greatest of greats, and immediately responds without skipping a beat. Well, I'm disappointed in myself too. So you're in good company. He didn't let, and the man had a big smile, and he diffused the whole situation immediately. But why? Because when you're in the state of ma, it means you're in the state of the divine. That's where the divine connects with you, tells you, he pulls you, moshcheni. It's the Passover stage. And when you can bask in the light of God, especially in that stage where the light of God shines so brightly, then there's no ego, and quite the opposite. There's only peace and reconciliation, which is what happened at that moment. So we have to be in the state of ma, even in times of contention. And that's what this teaches, really. And then comes the me. Then comes who. All right, thank you. Wow, someone pulled me. Who? And once I identify the who, then narutza, again, like the Song of Songs. Then I'll run after him. Then I'll develop it. Then I'll build it. Then I'll raise that child. And then we get to that ultimate connection that is also everlasting.